Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks for sticking around for the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Brian Batko in a matter of moments, and we're taking your phone calls tonight at 412-575-2600 is the number. Anything you want to talk about. We had a big game today. The Panthers failed that test, and it looks like they would have been in the ACC championship if they would have won that game, Brian. But unfortunately, they didn't, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't even something that we can really look back at and say Pitt had an opportunity to win this game. I know Narduzzi pointed to the second half, but, you know, those first two drives of the second half really killed the Panthers. And Miami completely dominated them, 38-7. It kind of looked like that Notre Dame game. They were in a class of their own right now. So I'm wondering if Miami gets into the playoff, Pitt doesn't get into the ACC championship. But, you know, disappointing finish for the Panthers. But I think the best thing we could sum up, maybe not today, but this season, is Mason Heinzel. They found a quarterback.
Yeah, I think you can point to you got to try to build on the Heinzel success, continue to build out that roster around him. You found out what it's like to be in these big games against elite teams. Now in 2026, find a way to win those, or at least be more competitive.
Yeah, no question about it. But for this season, maybe we could see a Pitt Penn State bowl game that would kind of salvage what both fan bases, you would think. I mean, I think that would be, I think the NCAA or the bowls I like when they put matchups like that together, and if they were smart, they would do something like that.
Yeah, I agree 100% because, you know, you want attendance at these games, and it can be tricky trying to predict what programs, teams, or fans are going to travel well, what teams are going to draw. I think if you have a built-in intrigue like that, where you don't even care who's opting out of the game, you don't care if the third and fourth string quarterbacks are starting, the teams are just going to sort of root and care about the laundry on the field, then to me that's always a no-brainer. But there's a lot about the bowl process and selection and bowl season in general that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm not going to go ahead and predict anything because I think it's sort of a broken aspect of college football, but it would be an awesome silver lining if it gives us Pitt Penn State in 2025 after all.
Yeah, and it would happen at the Pinstripe Bowl, and you and I were just talking about this, and that seems logical. Think about it, because New York, there's a ton of Penn State fans there. It's not far from Pittsburgh. It makes sense. I could see a lot of people from Pittsburgh, a lot of fans. That game, no doubt, would be sold out.
Yeah, I mean, some of the Penn State fans might get a little scared of seeing tall buildings and bright lights, but you're right, it's not too far from State College. So, yeah, I think that would be cool. I've covered the Pinstripe Bowl last time Pitt was there against Northwestern. Now, that was not a bowl game to remember for the Panthers. I think pretty much all of their NFL draft prospects got banged up in that game and did not return. Nathan Peterman, James Conner, Brian O'Neill as well. Ben DiNucci came in. So not fond memories of it, but everybody would get juiced up and ready for Pitt Penn State.
Yeah, I just don't want to see a Pitt Sun Bowl appearance again. You and I have been there.
We have. It's a cool bowl game, but like you don't need to do it twice in a 10-year span, let alone I think this would be 3 for Pitt because they played Stanford when we were there, Kenny Pickett era, Rich, and then they played, who was it a few years back? Where was it? Was that the Nick Patty game?
It was Northwestern.
Where he led them to the comeback win in the Sun Bowl, I think. No, it was UCLA.
UCLA. That was it. Yeah. What was I thinking? All right. So and look, Penn State has a few questions right now too. Not only which bowl they're going to go to, but who's going to be their head coach. Does Terry Smith have a shot?
I think he does. The longer that this goes on, where no clear-cut, obvious candidates are sort of jumping at the opportunity. I mean, I think we all were circling Curt Cignetti immediately the moment James Franklin was fired, and yet he gets buku bucks to stay at Indiana. And this isn't just a Nittany Lions issue right now. I mean, it is a very odd time in college football when it comes to head coaches, coaching searches. The Lane Kiffin, LSU, Mississippi, love triangle saga, whatever you want to call it right now, is sort of hijacking one of the best weeks of the year, rivalry week in this sport. And Florida is now out. They're apparently going to look for somebody else, and there could be a bunch of other big jobs that still come open. So my point is, the more chaotic and hectic this gets just around the national landscape, maybe that does end up giving Terry Smith at least a better chance if he doesn't end up getting it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like the whole world's waiting for Lane Kiffin to make a decision and then the dominoes will fall after that.
Yeah, it could have a trickle down once you find out where the big fish in this cycle is going to go. And I was just talking to Josh in between the break there. He thinks he's going to stay with Mississippi. I know a lot of LSU fans would be downtrodden by that, but Mississippi's probably going to be, they're going to be in the playoff with the season that they've had. And then the big debate that they're having right now in those fan circles is, would you let Lane Kiffin coach a playoff team if he's taking a job elsewhere? I don't think you could do that. I think that would fly in the face of everything that's kind of good and right about college football and loyalty and running a program. So that, to me, really complicates the decision for him. And, again, it's complicating the decision for Penn State and really every team that's looking for a coach right now.
And maybe Alabama's job's going to be open if they lose here tonight. So
yeah, you never know with Kalen DeBoer. I mean, if he would want to get out of that pressure cooker that he accepted when he replaced Nick Saban. But I know the one name that gets a lot of buzz, too, for Penn State is Bob Chesney, who's at James Madison. He's done a great job replacing Kurt Cignetti at that program, and he was doing great work at Holy Cross before that, a Northeastern guy. So if it's not Terry Smith, maybe he would have the inside track.
Brian Hartline, too, his name I've heard from the inner circles there, the Ohio State offensive coordinator. So, who knows what it's going to be. But it's going to be an interesting, month or so here to figure out who the next head coach is. All right, we're going to take a break. Back with your phone calls. 412-575-2600 is the number. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our Xfinity Tweet of the Night. The Steelers elevated Asante Samuel Jr. to the active roster as he's set to make his season debut. They also placed Broderick Jones on IR. That's not good news for sure. One of the things that we were talking about this week, your colleague over at the Post-Gazette, Jerry Dulac, who's also our Steelers insider, he's been pushing for this. We did something on Thursday bringing up Asante Samuel, and they're going to do it. They need help in the secondary. It looks like Joey Porter Jr. is going to play, so they should be at full strength.
Yeah, and James Pierre has sort of solidified that other cornerback spot, despite Mike Tomlin saying prior to the Bears game in his press conference that Tuesday that Darius Slay would start when healthy. Well, he must have had a change of heart, or from what he saw from Slay made him think that he's not fully healthy, but it's not like it was a soft tissue injury or anything. He was in the concussion protocol, but maybe Slay had done enough damage to his standing with the coaches that he's just not getting that job back. And it wouldn't even surprise me if Asante Samuel Jr. leapfrogs him too. That was my initial reaction to the announcement from the team today. Was this is probably not good for Slay, who did fill in for 20 snaps last week when Joey Porter Jr. kept getting banged up. Didn't really screw up, but again, it hasn't been a good season for him in the black and gold. All
right, our live poll question of the night. Just scan that QR code on the right-hand corner of your screen. Our Penn West, sponsored by Penn West University, who will win tomorrow. Look, some viewers have spoken. They all think the Bills are going to win. We'll get to our predictions in a little bit. We'll keep this one going. Just scan that QR code. We'll get out to our phone lines right now. We got Ken out in North Oakland. What's up, Ken?
And say,
how you doing?
Hello?
Yep, you're on.
Hey, hi. This is Rich Walsh.
Yeah, and Brian Batko, what's up?
Sorry. I was just saying that, Terry Smith, I love him, and he turned around our team, the Penn State and everything like that, and that was great and everything like that. But you can't let your defense run that kind of points up against your defense. That's not saying a whole lot. I mean, that's like the Pirates or the Steelers, when we have a sorry game, you know what I'm saying? It's just,
all right. Yeah, thanks a lot, Ken. I appreciate the call. I mean, I think Terry Smith has a shot. I want him to get the job. I'm rooting for him. But I don't think Penn State fires James Franklin and then hires Terry Smith. I think Terry Smith would be a good option if their other options that they wanted don't come through. And it looks like maybe Cignetti was definitely at the top of the list, and he signs a new deal. And there's a couple other guys that are off the board right now. So Rule is another one. Where do they go from here? I mean, that Auburn-Alabama game is tied at 20. If DeBoer left there for Penn State, this all could fall that way. Lane Kiffin goes to Alabama, DeBoer potentially to Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of dominoes that could fall there. And to Ken's point, I mean, yeah, obviously that is the argument against Terry Smith, right, is, you want to rip the Band-Aid off of the Franklin era entirely, maybe, rather than keeping someone who was on his staff. Now, I think it's a slightly different just because Terry Smith has a link to the Joe Paterno era, and we know how fondly Penn State fans remember those days. So it's not completely like it would be one of James Franklin's top lieutenants. But yeah, I mean, you moved on from the head man from that staff. Does it make a ton of sense to go with the interim coach who replaced him? Probably not from a 30,000-foot view. But again, what are your other options going to be? And does Terry Smith get a chance to stack up against them? We'll see.
And I think that Penn State's going to try to retain Terry Smith. They should. He's a great recruiter. But I wouldn't be surprised if James Franklin wants him in Virginia Tech as well. So he's in a good spot. There's no question about it. Let's get Bill out in Shippenville. How you doing, Bill?
Yes, I think Narduzzi must have spent some time this week with Tomlin. He had no control over that team today. Thank you.
I think a lot had to do with how good Miami is. I think there's no question they're one of the top 10 teams in the country. They looked the part today. And like you mentioned earlier in the show, if it wasn't for Carson Beck, they'd be undefeated right now.
Yeah, and I think Bill's call is probably more about some of those penalties, the unforced errors, basically, that Pat Narduzzi wasn't real happy with after the game. Now, if you read between the lines and if you're fluent in Narduzzi-ese, like I pretend to be after two and a half seasons of covering him, I don't think he was real happy with the officiating. I think he thought some of his guys got a raw deal there, and it's always the second guy that gets caught, right? But either way, and I think he acknowledged this too, like, you can't have that. You can't have those careless mistakes, those unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. For Pitt to beat that Miami team, you basically need to play a perfect game. So you can't be shooting yourself in the foot with flags like that. And they were already down at that point as well. But yeah, you want to see your team be more disciplined to try to pull off that kind of upset. You got to walk that line, find that balance between playing with an edge and not hurting yourself when you can't afford to.
Yeah, you don't have the penalties. It might be 38-14 instead of 38-7 or 38-20 or something like that. Let's go to Craig in Oakland. How you doing, Craig?
Hey, I'm curious why no one's addressing the elephant in the room that is another team going to come in and outbid Pitt for the quarterback for next year?
Oh, I don't know if that's an elephant in the room. I feel like Heinkel, from the limited time that I spent with him, he's a pretty loyal guy. I understand that money talks, right? I would assume that he's going to get Eli Holstein's money and he's going to stay happy and stay here. But look, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, Brian. I mean, a lot of people are saying that he can leave. Well, Eli Holstein could have left too. But what happens if he goes to a place and it doesn't work out? He should stay here, see what happens next year, get his money, and then maybe you look at other options. But you're still going to get drafted at Pitt. Kenny Pickett is a prime example, and you can get paid at Pitt too.
I think it's still a fair question, though, from Craig. I mean, you always got to wonder about that now with the NIL era and the transfer portal, and you bring it, you sort of find a diamond in the rough, you recruit him, you land him, you develop him, and then if he gets $5 million to go somewhere else, I mean, it's hard to blame a kid in that situation, a college student, a collegiate athlete who hasn't made millions to this point in their life. And I mean, just to play devil's advocate there with you, though, Rich, I mean, yes, the NFL career will still be there if you produce and you prove yourself, but the chance to win a national championship, I think, is very intriguing, and I think you have to really squint to see it as a possibility for Pitt football, because, I mean, we saw what happened when Notre Dame and Miami came in here, so I'm not suggesting that Heinkel will leave or will want to leave, but I don't blame anybody for having that fear in the back of their head in this climate.
So 8 starts as a freshman. Do you pay the guy $5 million to go somewhere else? Because he's probably going to get 7 figures at Pitt.
I mean, these teams have crazy money, and you look at. I saw a lot of national analysts praising Heinkel for what he was doing. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's always a possibility. I think all these teams have their de facto GMs, and they have their directors of recruiting, and they've got scouting staffs devoted to watching film of players from other teams and scouring the portal. Now, you can't tamper with guys technically, but we know how things happen. Guys are allowed to have agents now, so I don't blame any Pitt fans for losing sleep over that. at night because I think Heinzel's the brightest spot in this program at the moment.
Yeah, agents can tamper, that's for sure, right? All right, we got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls, some of your tweets, and to wrap things up coming up next. Welcome back. Let's get right out to the phone lines. We got Bob out in Beachview. How you doing, Bob?
Okay, Rich. Say, I've seen Firemouth for years at the Steelers here. He's a big guy, good hands, and they got that monster 80, I think. Is there a good reason that is the league picking up some new second-line defensive guys, tall, young, live, that make passing in the middle dangerous?
I think the Steelers just want to try to protect the ball. I bet you see some more passes down the middle of the field this game against the Bills. How do the Steelers beat the Bills, Brian? How do they win this game?
They need to protect Aaron Rodgers, and that's going to be no easy task. With Broderick Jones going to IR, Andrews Pete not only going to be in this game, but he's going to have a chance to be that left tackle for the next month at least. So, I think that's a big part of it on the offensive side of the ball. They're probably going to have to keep getting rid of it quickly for Rodgers dealing with that wrist. And on the other side, it's tough to stop the Bills' offense. I think you try to stop the run. You hope your corners will win man-to-man against a receiving core and pass catcher group that doesn't scare you a ton. But even if you plaster those guys, Josh Allen can take off and hurt you.
I guess James Cook is the one guy that you got to keep an eye on, too, other than Josh Allen. You got to stop him, and we heard T.J. Watt talk about that today. It's just Josh Allen. He's tough to beat. The Steelers haven't had too much success against them. I like the Bills, but this kind of reminds me a little bit of that Colts game. I like the Bills 27-23, but I'm not counting the Steelers completely out of this one.
No, I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers find a way with the Bills missing both their starting tackles, but I'll go Bills 21, Steelers 17.
All right, Brian, we'll see you at the game tomorrow, and hopefully we see you guys over on KDKA News right now.